Today our shooting tip is about strong hand and weak hand shooting. Obviously we'd all prefer to not have to shoot strong hand or weak hand. It's always easier and more comfortable to shoot freestyle with both hands on the gun. The reality of the stages that we face is that they make us shoot strong hand and weak hand, and you need to practice so that you have good ability with these techniques. The first thing to realize is that when you have only one hand on the gun, you will have to shoot slower. And be aware of the fact that flinching and trigger errors become accentuated when you only have one hand on the gun. So you really have to pay attention to the triggering. When you have one hand, the grip on the gun becomes asymmetrical. And this is going to create a problem with the gun recoiling off to the left. Your strong hand, if you're right-handed, your strong hand on the gun approaches from the right. And this creates a torque motion that will not really allow the gun to recoil up and down. It's going to recoil just a little bit off to the left. To minimize this problem, what you want to try and do is get your elbow in a little bit further behind the gun. Not in your natural position, but a little bit further behind the gun, so that as the gun lifts off the target, it's going to tend to be more up and down. It's never going to be as good as it is with both hands on the gun, but you can improve the recoil behavior by bringing your elbow in a little bit. A common mistake made by many shooters is they over-grip the gun to try and compensate for the missing hand and control the recoil. But gripping too tight only deteriorates the quality of your trigger pull, and that's a problem when shooting with one hand on the gun. You want to make sure to use your body correctly to control the recoil. We have only one hand on the gun, so we're going to shift our foot position so that we're leading with our strong foot. Rather than our natural shooting position, which leads with our weak shoulder, we're now going to lead with our strong shoulder, leading aggressively with our right foot, bringing our elbow in behind the gun. The left hand is tucked up against the chest. You don't want it hanging loose at your side, and you're not allowed to support your other arm. Get your head in behind the gun, and in this position you'll be able to shoot strong hand with better recoil control. Now, if you need to shoot weak hand, which is often the case as well, it'll be the same technique in reverse. You want to make sure you have a good solid grip, shift your position so that you're leaning aggressively into the gun, keeping your elbow in tight behind the gun to try and make it recoil up and down. Lean into the gun, but do not over-grip the gun. You have to accept the fact that it's going to be recoiling more and slow down on your shooting. That's the reality of shooting strong hand and weak hand. Something important to keep in mind is that since you only have one hand on the gun, it will be recoiling sideways, so usually a little bit off to the left if you're shooting strong hand, right-handed only. For this reason, I like to try and transfer across the targets. If I'm shooting right-handed, I'll go across the targets, if possible, from right to left, riding the recoil as it goes off the target to the next target. If I'm shooting weak-handed, if I'm shooting left-handed, I'll most likely shoot the targets from left to right, again, carrying to the next target with the reload, with the recoil. Something to keep in mind and mention is transferring the gun from hand to hand. You will have to transfer the gun from your strong hand to your weak hand to shoot weak hand. A few techniques, but the best one I know is this. As you transfer the gun from your strong hand to your weak hand, you want to make sure always to maintain control so that there's no chance of you dropping the gun. You have to clear your grip of your strong hand to make room for your weak hand. The best way to do this is so. You open up your thumb while the front fingers maintain good control over the gun. Your weak hand thumb comes underneath your strong hand thumb and gets a solid grip on the back, and then you open up the front and transfer your front fingers. This way, one or the other hand has full control on the gun as you transfer. You open the back, insert your thumb underneath, and transfer your front fingers. And with a little bit of practice, this can be done quite quickly and consistently, picking up a good grip position each time. Let's try and fire a few rounds and see how this aggressive position helps to control the recoil. So remember, when you're shooting strong hand, you really want to get your strong shoulder behind the gun, lean forward on your strong side leg, bring your elbow in further in than you usually would behind the gun, and keep the gun upright. Don't tilt it sideways. Keep it upright. Will give you better recoil control even with one hand on the gun, like so. If I allow my elbow to go far out, the gun will tend to recoil more to the left. Upright will perform better. So shooting strong hand and weak hand is something you absolutely have to practice. Don't wait until you come to a match and you're surprised by it. Make it part of your practice routine every time you go to the range. You will have to accept that you have to shoot slower, but with good practice and the right technique, you can shoot well, strong hand and weak hand.